that I saw sitting outside the cafe was not Martin Wright. And I walked past this bloke sitting at the cafe. He was staring at me. But when I got really close to him, his eyes, there was something about his eyes, like Brian Collier, his shot in his throat. He said it wasn't Martin Wright that shot him.
Welcome to the Wasp Files. Some of this material may be distressing and viewer discretion is advised. This episode of the Wasp Files contains an interview with a very special person who was directly involved in the tragic aftermath of the Port Arthur Massacre, specifically at the Broad Arrow Cafe. This lady is sadly deceased. She is courageous, wonderful, and very heartfelt and very, very resolute in her observations of what she observed that day, which are contrary to the mainstream story. For the first time tonight, you will hear from her words, as she has never really had the opportunity to speak her part in the mainstream media or in a court of law. She has given testimony before in witness statements and during conferences in the past, but this was a lady who courageously, in the aftermath of that terrible tragedy at the cafe, provided triage care to the victims for a number of hours before help even arrived. By her own testimony, she was covered in blood and assisting the victims as best she could, the survivors, and hoping that help arrived. To this day, her testimony remains unchallenged, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for her. I spoke to her. She was a wonderful person who has once again since passed on. So without further ado, I would like to present the testimony of lovely Mrs. Wendy Scurr.
I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions. A lot of people have some very...
I've got a lot of people up here support me a great deal, but I'm afraid they really don't have the story quite right. It gets changed. I don't care now. I'm not very well. I had cancer. Now I'm having a hell of a go with my diabetes. I think the pancreas has had it. So it just goes on and on. And I'm really particularly interested in young people taking it up, because that's where the future is with the truth and justice. As far as Port Arthur goes, and a lot of the young people are very interested in it.
Well, it certainly haunted me. I mean, I was younger, but we all remember back then it pretty much blew a hole through the whole of Australia, and it was a very affecting and haunting event. And I think, like most people, they have questions they want answers to.
Well, I don't know whether you'll get the facts out of the coffee, because they were some of the one that was really against me. Call me a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not.
Well, look, I don't label people, and I certainly don't judge people. And as I said, what I've uncovered has made me ask a lot of questions and go, look, this just doesn't add up. But there's certainly very, very strong anecdotal evidence, factual stuff on public record that seems to suggest there was more going on than met the public eye, put it that way.
Oh, yeah, sure was. People say, why won't you let it go with you? And I just say, I'll never let it go till the day I die. Because three things happened to me that day. It happened to me. It was to no one else. But they're all major questions that should be answered on that alone. And instead of that, they put you there. Even the local people turned on me. I mean, I worked on the ambulance down there for many years. I taught all the first aid classes in school and everything. But they forget that. And they just had people out there that hurt me. But because I spoke the truth. I didn't know anything about Martin Wright Field or otherwise. I've got three things, and if you wish to know what they are, I'll tell you. And they're the three things that bug me, because I know it's true.
I would like to know what those things were, if you wish to elaborate.
And I want to know why I've had no answers, why I can't get any answers from the police. But anyway, I'll elaborate. I made the call to the headquarters at 1:32 p.m. that day. came towards the cafe and a couple of bullets come through there, or one come through, just missed me. Well, that's fine. That's not the problem. The problem is I made a phone call there at 1:32 to the police. I was so upset that nobody come to help us. We waited till about 7:30, 20 to 8 for an ambulance or a police car. We had no tape round time, so there we were, 31 of us, to look after 500 people. On our site, there were 32 dead.
Yeah.
And here we are. There was one man came in at 4:30, and he was only in there to gather witness names, with statements off them. One man with all those people. I can remember him getting on the phone and saying, get some fucking police down here. So that wasn't until after 7:30 that someone came in. They came in and protected the crime scene. Now you see photos of the broad arrow with the blue and white tape around it. That crime scene was not protected. And all those poor people that had dead people in there, they were allowed to go in. We never had the authority to stop them. So she was wide open. All the evidence was getting bullets were being taken off the floor. But what can we do? That's one thing I wanted answers to. Why? Why do this to us? Because I can tell you it was a very traumatising time.
Yeah, there was a lot of mention of the fact they mobilised everything from the Special Operations Group to the Marine Police, but they were basically held up and they were told just hold off at Tirana.
They were kept at Tirana. They had the barbecue. One of the blokes come down and got his wife, and he just drove through a roadblock. He said, ask the police down there. They said, no, they're having a barbecue at Tirana, and it was too dangerous for them to come in. And I have in the EMA report, which is a federal government document, where they didn't come in. It's all there, because it was too dangerous. It was about 6:30, 7:15, after dark, straight after dark. We had 3 shots fired. I was in the hotel with about 200 people, and then the word come, and don't let anyone outside, shut those curtains, the gunman's back here. But all their witness statements that 3 shots was fired. Within about 20 minutes, in they come, armed to the hill. Armed to the hill. You know, I was there at 1:30 in the morning, the most shocking PTSD. And they would have compensated for that either. Because 3 months before they'd taken PTSD out of the compensable injury. That's just one thing.
Tell me the other 2 main things that you think really deserve answers to.
I got into the cafe with 2 people that were with me, Sue Burgess and Stephen Howard, and her daughter was in there. She'd been working in there, Stephen's wife. And I said, when we got to the back door, I wonder if they got out. And I was so shocked because I didn't know they were even there working. I said, right, we'll have to make our way. It won't be very quick. But I said, aim for the counter, where they'll probably be. And there they were, lying on the floor.
I'm sort of in touch with Stephen Howard, and he's pretty messed up about everything. Was his wife the lady behind the counter, the 26-year-old?
Yes, Elizabeth. The lady that was working with was Nicole Burgess.
Yeah.
She was about 17, and her mother was Sue Burgess. She said, what are we going to do? I said, well, nothing we can do here. I think we should leave this room. I said, Sue, you're in charge, because funny thing, all the managers got sent away that morning. I suppose you know that.
I do, yes.
Funny thing, that Robin Cooper was Sue Burgess' sister, and Robin told me they'd never been away. She worked for 26 years at Port Arthur and never got took away once, let alone on a Sunday morning to come back on a Monday on a workday. The biggest thing there, the door handle, it wouldn't open. The exit door, the fire door, it wouldn't open. It was jammed. About 6 bodies stacked up there in that corner. And they'd all been trying to get out the door. And Damien Bunk said nobody tried the door. I thought, well, how do you know you weren't in there? But anyway, I tried the door because I wanted to help to get those people one off the other. But I couldn't reach them. Dead weight, you know. But anyway, I tried the door, and I realised the door handle went up and down, but it wouldn't budge. And it turns out that had been nailed up.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. There was some talk about it having a faulty lock, but then I heard that it was nailed.
No,
so who would have nailed it?
That lock was a cover-up. That was a cover-up, the faulty lock business. They went to a lot of trouble with that. And I know now why it was done. It was done because people were stealing stuff from inside the cafe. Because you can't lock a fire door from inside. So the only way they could stop that door from opening and people stealing things was to put a couple of 3 or 4 6-inch nails in. And that's what they did. Anyway, I think we need a coronial inquiry.
It's astounding to me that Howard squashed that because federal doesn't overturn state legislation. So I don't know how he got away with that one.
You want me to tell you how they got away with it?
That's my husband, Graham.
Yes, please. How are you, Graham?
I don't begrudge John Howard doing what he did. If it was me, I'd shoot Christine Milne and Paul Beasley.
Right.
Yeah, they couldn't because they wouldn't do anything. Nobody would do anything. They all laid down.
The thing for me is, I often had a lot of criticism of people saying, look, just leave it alone. We shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't dig up the past. But I've always explained that my personal belief is that it's really only through courageous evaluation and cold heart light of day and answering those questions that you can actually move on.
Well, I've not had any, you see, and that's probably why I feel bitter. I really am, still. It's 20 years.
There was some talk about Hans Overbeek taking a bit more credit than he perhaps should have for dealing with the aftermath, whereas I've heard people say that you really should have received some kind of award for your efforts in saving people. What are your thoughts on that one?
We got a bravery award, but it was only given to keep us happy, I think. There were a couple of the staff down there were really carrying on about it, really insisting that they get the bravery award. Another thing, going back to that door, I found out about that door. In fact, it had been nailed up 3 weeks before. There's a girl down there that I was nursing with, and her husband was the man that nailed the door up. And she approached me and she said, Wendy, she said, I think that door being nailed up is what broke our marriage. And I said, why do you say that? She said, John nailed it up and told me. Now, I said to her, would you sign an affidavit to that effect? I said, well, if we can get a coronial inquiry, you've got to tell the truth under oath. But I know why she wouldn't, because they've already had a go at my family. And that's the sort of stunt they pull. And you can't blame her. But if she had to go to a coronial inquiry and put her head on the Bible and swear, I think she wouldn't want it, knowing that there's people in there that knew the truth. So she would do it. She would say, because she's got no option, has she?
I'm just wondering whether it ever will transpire, whether there will be a coronial. There's certainly still a lot of pressure there, but basically...
No. There were people that don't know about the door. The minute this happened, we were separated. They separated us from the people that came from the mainland, from other visitors, other staff that come back to work. They separated us from them. It was a big separation. And they didn't want us talking to anyone, you see. They didn't want us to be there together. That's why they don't want anniversaries.
Most of the media were not too bad about it, but there were certain elements that you could tell they just wanted to shut down any kind of questioning.
Ray Martin and I don't get on well together. He came up to me when Martin died the day he was sentenced. He said, haven't we got a good outcome? I said, no, we haven't. I said, I think it's disgraceful having going on in that courtroom. He said, why do you say that? I said, that lawyer never given a chance. They just crucified every sentence, crucified Martin Bryant, and never stood up and said, don't do that, don't say that. You can't say that. I was in it, and I was so disgusted. So I told Ray Martin.
Yeah, Ray Martin and the whole 60 Minutes crew and all those, they're not exactly paragons of integrity when it comes to, journalistic reporting. And certainly I have no love whatsoever for Avery. I think he's a scumbag.
Poor old Martin Bryant before that anniversary, wasn't it terrible?
He would have gotten off, or at least he would have been found not guilty by reason of insanity.
He did a lot of things without even having a proper person there defending. He was just left to his own devices, the poor little devil, and he really wouldn't know it. And I think he was going down to Port Arthur that day. From what I've gathered, he used to go with the police a lot. They used to take him down on exercises, right? They used to think he was so important. And no, that's what they've done. The fella that I saw sitting outside the cafe was not Martin Bryant.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Who do you think it looked like?
I've been out on the ferry, and I was walking in, and I walked past this bloke sitting at the cafe. He was staring at me. But when I got really close to him, his eyes, there was something about his eyes, he wasn't nice looking at all, and I didn't know Martin Bryant either. I went to the cafe and ducked out the side door, and then just after that, he must have followed me. And the shooting started, but I know why he was looking at me now, because I had a work uniform on, and he saw me go into the cafe. I hadn't even thought of that for a few days until Martin Bryant, his picture, came in the newspaper. And he was that much better looking than this fella. This fella had long, straggly hair. He wasn't, nice at all. Martin Bryant was quite a snappy looking boy. Nice dresser and everything, and it wasn't the same one.
Is there any chance at all that it might have been Martin Bryant who had, been so unhinged that he'd lost his kind of look, so to speak?
I don't think so. Now, people that saw him close to what I did, like Graham Collier, he's shot in the throat. He said it wasn't Martin Bryant that shot him. And he watched him the whole time. He shot him in the throat, he was down on the floor, partly paralysed. And he said, I was sort of making out I was dead because there's that much blood coming out of him. And the bloke stood right around him. He didn't pull the trigger. And Graham watched him. And he said it was not Martin Bryant. Swear to it.
It's a very frightening proposition.
I've had a name given to me, but I can't prove it. And I've seen one man's life be destroyed, and I don't want to be responsible for another man's life being destroyed. I'll give you that name.
Yeah,
I'll give it to you.
Yes, please.
The name I've been given is Ben Overby.
Yeah, which is Hans's son. And I know that Ben basically committed suicide 6 months after Port Arthur.
Supposedly. That was caused to his brother. He had a brother that I actually spoke to quite a bit on email. He was quite religious, trying to get information out of him. But he didn't know much on anything, that boy. You read Overby's statement, and 1 minute he was there with 2 boys, and then after that, after shooting, he's only one. But anyway, I can't follow that. I've got too much on my plate to follow that, but I'm just telling you what I think. Another thing that happened, Hans Overby, he was very arrogant, quite nasty in the cafe when I walked in. One of the women that was hiding in the cafe said she saw him after the gunman left, going through people's pockets.
Jesus.
He's obviously looking for something. And I believe he was the backup shooter with the man with the shotgun, because there was a shotgun fired in there several times. I found so many people that tell us that.
With yourself, for instance, I don't believe anyone particularly owns this incident, but I think that you, along with a lot of other people, deserve sort of justice and to be treated and portrayed in a fair and respectful manner.
Well, I told you what I'd do if it happened to me again. I'd get in the car and go for what they put me through. Because I can tell you, and this is in all honesty, the years and the months after Port Arthur Massacre, what they did to us. I'd need another 8 hours to tell you about it.
I've tried to be as respectful to some of the cops that I've spoken to, like Terry McCarthy and Phil Pike and some of those blokes.
Well, none of them are on my side. I'll tell you that straight now, they're not. Did you ever see the police training video I got?
The training one, yes, I've seen that one. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, well, did you have the bodies on it?
Yes, I did see those.
Well, like I got into terrible trouble over that. Because it came to me, the video ended up with me. A lady that I knew found it in that was bought it out of the chip shop in Hobart, so she says. And we reckon it was probably Luton. Anyway, she sent a copy to me. The copy that I got, the bodies weren't right honest, they were sort of back further after 10 minutes blank tape, and the bodies rolled up. I had no idea they were even on it. And anyway, I rang David Llewellyn, who was Minister for Police, and I knew his wife quite well. Anyway, they jumped on it and carried on then, and turns out some other people that had been out for quite a while and they've been used. See, half of them don't know the true story. might be the only way we can get the word out. The truth.
Well, I'm going to keep fighting for it and hope you're proud of what I do.
Oh, it will be, I'm sure.
This isn't over, and it's just starting. It's just starting.
Paul.
Well, look, thank you very, very much. I wish you very much the best, and I'll certainly be in touch again.
Okay. All right, Paul.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That was the lovely Wendy Scurr, courageous lady involved. Date is the 22nd of the 11th, 2016. It is now 6:33 p.m.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Wasp Files. Feel free to share far and wide and see the attached files in support of the episode. Thank you.